Back in college, I worked on a ton of different projects, mostly Android apps and some other random projects. And that's what kind of gave me motivation to learn programming, was just trying to build my ideas. This is what I filled up a lot of my time with. So during my first and second year, I was just trying to build as many things as possible. And eventually, all of these projects paid off because it ended up allowing me to land my first software engineering job. But it wasn't until the near tail end of my third year of college that I realized while others were doing internships, I was building projects. Although building projects is a great thing, you get to learn on your own and, make your ideas come to life, but you kind of need both. You need projects and you need experience. So when my third year came around, I kind of went into panic mode. I knew I had to get an internship. That way I could pad my resume as much as possible to prepare for applying to full-time job opportunities in the next year. Since it was the end of the year, a lot of the, career fairs and whatnot, they were already passed. So internships at this point, when I came to this realization, were pretty scarce. Not only that, but I was really invested in becoming an Android developer. So I wanted to try to find an Android developer internship, which, at least from my time looking, is really rare to find. I remember applying to a bunch of places. I fixed up my resume with all of the projects that I have done, and I was just getting nothing. I was not getting any responses at this point. And eventually I really started to panic. So in a bit of desperation, I started looking at any developer role, and I applied literally everywhere. I mean, large tech company, mid-sized company, small startup, I applied everywhere. Didn't matter what type of role it was, even if I wasn't interested in it, I applied. So eventually there was a company that got back to me, and it was a very small startup. And all they said in their email was, "Great, when can you start?" So I didn't have to go through any interview process. I didn't have to answer any questions, what my background was, what my interests are, what I know right now. It was kind of a major red flag, and it was unpaid. So it was just a recipe for disaster. But at this point, I just wanted anything to get on my resume before I started my senior year of college, because I knew that's when I was gonna go look for my first full-time job. I just wanted to, pad my resume as much as possible with not just my projects, but also with some internship experience. When I landed this internship, I was actually working part-time at Cold Stone, which is an ice cream place. So I was still making money, to get by and, purchase things that I needed on my day-to-day. So I wasn't hurting for money, but obviously working for no money kind of sucks. When I started working at this startup, I quickly learned that I would be working on very outdated technology. None of the technical things that I learned there carried over to any other jobs or other projects that I worked on. The entire tech stack was using what's known as Adobe Cold Fusion. So this is a technology that allows you to create server-side web apps, and you have to use a custom Cold Fusion markup language called CFML. Cold Fusion started out with Cold Fusion 3, which came out in 1997, and there's been many releases since then, with the most recent in 2021. So Adobe Cold Fusion, it's still used today, but unfortunately, when I was working at this internship, they were still using Cold Fusion 9, which was released in 2009. I took this internship in 2016, and the most recent version at that time was the 2016 release. But it was never upgraded because the code base was just so unbelievably bloated. So there was essentially a 7-year gap from the version that we were using and then the newest version. And honestly, even if we were using the newest version, I feel like a lot of people don't know what Adobe Cold Fusion is. At least I didn't. So I don't know. I just felt like I knew right away it wasn't going to be very helpful. I was just like, okay, I'm gonna get this on my resume and then I'm gonna get out. That's all I was thinking. But honestly, the tech stack was not even the worst part of this experience. So here's the catch. It was very sketchy because they only hired unpaid interns. The owner didn't have any actual full-time paid developer employees. So imagine you have an entire business being primarily built by a rotating door of unpaid fresh interns who have no idea what they're doing. Yeah, so you can imagine what the code base looked like on top of using this old tech. I was expected to do all of the development work on my personal laptop. So I had to, install all of these different technologies, tools, frameworks, whatever it was on my laptop and, bring it in. It was a little annoying. I always figured, if I'm going to start a job, they would at least give me the equipment to do the job. But of course, what can you expect from an unpaid internship? So I ended up working at this place for 2 months. I recognized very early on how little actual experience I would get from this place. But like I mentioned, I just wanted something to stick on my resume. It wasn't full-time. I was traveling to their small office 3 days a week on days where I didn't have class. And towards the end of the 2 months, I just started working from home because, it's unpaid and I don't see how someone could force you to come in if you're unpaid. So towards the end of it, I was just like, yeah, I'll work from home. On the final day when I went into the office, I wrapped up all of the last tasks that I had and I wrote up a Google Doc to pass along whatever learnings I had to whoever would come after me. In the end, I learned something invaluable when I went on to apply to full-time jobs in my senior year. And this is the main reason why I wanted to share this story. I ended up getting 3 job offers my senior year before I had even graduated, and none of them cared to discuss my random internship at this unknown company. All of the interviews were about my personal projects. I would show up to the interviews, I would show the projects on my phone to the actual interviewer in person because I was making Android apps at the time. And doing this strategy, I really feel like set me apart from other candidates. And I think this led to me getting the offers. Of course, actually doing well in the interview questions, asking the coding questions, you have to do well in that. But I feel like with the strategy I took, it really set me apart from other candidates. The point I'm trying to make is if you are in college and you're trying to get your first job, having internship experience, it was 100% important, but I don't think it's absolutely required to get your first job. I think if you have projects and you can show them off to the interviewer in person, I think that's gonna make a strong case for you. Honestly, I just wouldn't recommend taking an unpaid internship for any reason because 1, obviously you aren't getting paid, but most importantly, if you have the time to work for someone and not get paid, it just makes more sense to build personal projects for yourself and pawn your projects off as your experience because at the end of the day, your projects are your experience. I don't know, that's the way I look at it. Anyways, hope you guys like the story. That's all I have for you today.